So, without further ado, let's get started. So, for day two, we're going to talk a little bit about doing your research. And this entails a lot of different things. It can be customer research, it can be research on your market, it can be research on your business, like what offers you have, what your niche is. All of that stuff. So, that's stuff that you do want to know before you get started on your quiz strategy, mostly because it has everything to do with what people will get out of you and out of your business and services or products. Um, so, the first thing that I want to talk about today is a really big question that you really want to ask yourself once you figure out your goals, once you figure out what you want the outcome to be, and you're ready to go. And that question is, why should anyone take your quiz? This is a huge question to ask yourself because if you can't answer this, then not going to it's not going to help for the rest of your quiz. But if you can answer it, this is going to help you figure out a few things. And what those are the value that your quiz offers, the offer that you're selling, if there's any at the end of the quiz, if it's not engagement, or the products that you include in that personality type, and also who your target audience might be. So, a good example that I actually just read from somebody who posted in the questions was they specifically help women who might get burned out by being a working woman and also with maybe a spouse, whether that's married or cohabiting. And that is a target audience. But once you figure out what you want your quiz to be, you can get deeper into that and maybe say something like, okay, well, within that audience, that broad audience of women who might feel burned out or overwhelmed, what type of specific women am I going to target with this? What kind of burnout are they feeling? And what kind of jobs do they have? Are they married or are they just in a relationship where they're living with somebody? Those are things that figuring out why somebody should take your quiz is going to help you figure out. And then that also ties into your offer. So if you figure out like, okay, I'm targeting, a woman who is burnt out because she works a 9 to 5 job, but she gets there at 7 a.m. because she has to prep for the rest of the day. She doesn't leave until 7 p.m. She works for 12 hours, gets home, has to cook, has to clean, things like that. Then you can start figuring out like what product or what service can I offer that specific person? And you just kind of go from there, right? Like you figure out like, okay, I can keep going from that. And what other types of burnout? This also works with products. So another really great example is I think one of my favorite quizzes that I found sometime last year was what type of jean style was right for you. And it's actually on our examples page if you guys have a chance to go check it out. But the reason why I like that one in particular is because it really pinpoints different types of women's body styles. It pinpoints like what type of fabric they're using. Also just even like goes down to like color, style of the jean. Is it boot cut? Is it straight jeans? Is it skinny jeans and things like that? So figuring out, why someone should take your quiz, that process might have been like, well, I want them to be able to figure out, what style of jeans fits best on their body type. And from there, you can then figure out what those body types are. And then once you figure out those body types, then you can figure out what products go for each body type. Lisa, I see your question. So I'm a divorce coach and struggling with figuring out a topic for my first quiz. Divorce is a sensitive topic, so I need to be creative. My quiz is something they'll not only take but also share with others. It can't be something so personal that sharing would be embarrassing, etc. That's a great point to make. And this is a perfect time to start thinking about that because we are talking about figuring out what your strategy will be. The number one thing that you want to remember with your quiz is you want it to be as positive as possible. So you're on the right track of feeling like, okay, well, divorce is a sensitive topic. People don't really want to talk about it, but I have a solution to help with that problem. So a lot of the times what I'll tell people if it's a more sensitive topic is make it as positive as possible with a spin of how you can help them. So for something like that, depending on what your offers are, your quiz title and tagline would change a little bit, but I would consider something along the lines of, which which single lifestyle is best for you, or how can I help you come up with the best course of action for figuring out where it can go. I also don't know a lot about what you do. Are you helping them finding lawyers? Are you helping them figure out what fun stuff they can do from there? Are you helping them figure out how to separate all their assets? All that stuff matters. But hopefully that helped a little bit. And I'm curious to see what you end up coming up with. So after thinking about why someone should take your quiz, I think that the next thing that you want to talk about or think about, sorry, is knowing your audience. And Lisa, since you did give me your specific business, I might use you as an example. It kind of sounds like you know who your audience is, and it's people who are looking at maybe divorcing or already divorced. That stuff also plays a part, right? When you want to know who your audience is, there's a few things that you want to do. You want to know what the brand voice is by knowing your audience's voice. So a really great way to do this is actually to go in and kind of look at people who are in your niche and figure out like how do they speak. And what I mean by that is, great example, somebody who's going through a divorce or thinking about it is going to have a totally different tone than somebody who's looking for, a nice dress to go out in the city on New Year's Eve or something like that. It's going to be totally different. So you want to make sure that you understand what their voice is, so that way you can speak to them and speak to them directly, and they'll feel more comfortable, like they're actually having that conversation. Okay, so I see that you're saying reaching agreements on all matters such as assets, debts, children, real estate, etc. So since it's on the spot, I won't be able to come up with the great solution for you right now, but I would say that something along the lines of, what is your gosh, I might have to think on this one and get back to you in the comments. I can't think off the top of my head, but that totally makes sense. So with that, it is going to have a more serious tone, but you can still do the same things of these best practices with that quiz. Hang tight. I will get back and think on that for you. So knowing your audience, something that you can do to figure this out that I've heard from some of our partners that they do, which is really, really great, and I love that they do this, is a lot of them will talk about looking at Amazon reviews, where they'll go into people who are in their niche, similar to what they're looking at, products similar to what they offer, and or services that they offer. They go in there and they look at what those reviews look like and what people are saying, what they sound like, and all that stuff. If any of my partners who do that are watching this at any time, please go in the comments and let people know what you think about that and how you do it, because I think it's great. Another thing that I've heard people do is they actually interview people, which I think is a great idea. They'll go in and they'll actually talk to people, ask them specific questions that they're looking to know, and trying to figure it out from there. So if you have that opportunity, that's a good idea as well. More recently, in my experience, what has really worked was us even just putting on workshops and listening to what people say in the comments, or in the chat, I should say, like what questions are they asking? What are they struggling with? How are they talking? What are they really looking for? And also like the Facebook group. So listening to what you guys are saying, how you say it, and what all of that looks like. So we covered why should anyone take your quiz. The next thing you want to do when you're looking at research is knowing your audience, and doing that by interviewing people, maybe reading some reviews of similar products or services online. And like I said, if you are able to do workshops or have a Facebook group, that's a great way to do it as well. You can also look at other people's Facebook group. If you're like, hey, this is similar to what I would do or to my niche, how do people sound? What do they sound like? What are they saying? The next thing you want to look at is knowing your offer. And this is a very big part of your quiz. You do not want to get started on your quiz until you know what your offer is. And the reason why I say that is because even from figuring out what your quiz title is and what your tagline is, has everything to do with what your offers or products are. It's going to tell people, it's going to give them a little bit of a snippet of what you actually can give to them, what value you can give to them, whether, it is a pair of jeans or you're helping them out with stress relief, things like that. Couple ways that you can do with it, or a couple things that you can do with this, is try to figure out what they're struggling with and what their pain points are. So Lisa, maybe for the divorce example, I know that you said that you help them reach agreements on all matters with assets, debts, children, and real estate. So, what I would do in this case is figure out what their pain points are in terms of, maybe assets. So, a pain point might be they own a house together and it's completely equal. Or maybe somebody paid for more of that than the other person. And in terms of like debts, it's like it could be someone else's debt or, but it's tied to both of them, things like that. Like, what are some pain points that they go through when they're figuring out this process or looking for this type of product? Another thing that you want to think about when you're when you're thinking about your offers or knowing what your offers are for your quiz is also knowing how you serve your customers. So, letting them know, well, not letting them know, but figuring out, okay, so when I have a customer come in and I ask them, these questions of how many years have you been in business? What products do you sell? What mindset are you in? Things like that. From there, what offer would you give them? What service would you provide for them? What would you then do from there? Would you give them a one-on-one consultation? Do they get a phone call? Do they get a strategy call? Do they just get email help? Do you have some kind of DIY services where you just kind of they pay for like all of the templates that you offer and instructions and it's all written? Or do you do it for them? There's a ton of different things that tie into that, but knowing how you serve your customers also ties into what knowing your offer is. And that's also going to tie into what your quiz will entail as well. So from here, we have why should anyone take your quiz, knowing your audience by doing research, and knowing your offer by doing research. The last thing that I want to talk about for this is knowing the kind of quiz you want to make. And this is also really important because I always, always, always recommend you strategize your quiz and your funnel before you go in and start making things. It makes the process a whole lot easier because everything's already ready to go. Now you just have to build it. Um, the way I like to think about it is if you're going to build a house, you want to know what the architecture and the skeleton of the house will look like before you go in and start putting materials down and putting stuff together. So that's kind of what we're going with here. So, what I mean by knowing the kind of quiz you want to make is number one, the style of quiz. So, Interact offers three different styles, which is a personality style quiz, an assessment style quiz, and a scored style quiz. They all work similar but very different at the same time. So, they get to the same goal of giving somebody a result, but they're very different in how they get that result. A personality style quiz is it's our most popular one, and that's the one that you'll see out there the most, where it's like, what type of blank are you? Or, tell me a little bit about XYZ, and I'll give you a personality, things like that. That's the one you'll see out there the most, and it's based off of correlations, which is mainly just a tallying system. So each answer choice is connected to a result, and as someone takes the quiz, it's essentially just tallying up how much of each result they're choosing, and whichever one they choose the most is the one they're going to get at the end. A scored style quiz can do something similar, but it's all off of weighing each answer choice to get a different score. And depending on what that score is, determines the result that they get. Assessment style is more of testing someone's knowledge. So, how much do you know about marketing? How much do you know about cooking Indian food? Things like that. Those tend to be more of based on your knowledge. Here's what your personality is, or here's how much you actually know, and things like that. So you want to figure out which style is going to be best for you, which one you want to go with. I've seen people mostly toggle between scored style and personality style, and really it just kind of depends. Personality style is in some cases easier if you know exactly who you're talking to, what those pain points are, but scored might be better for you if you're also trying to measure something. If you're measuring like maybe um, someone who might have like, are you ready to launch your business, or are you ready to get your website up and running, something like that. It can get a little bit better than that, but that's essentially what you're going to look over. From there, when you figure out what that is, then I recommend literally writing out all of your questions, answer choices, results, and also, I forgot this part, but the title and tagline before you jump into the builder. That way it's all planned out and you're ready to go. Um, and that's kind of everything it is for prepping your quiz. So we talked about why should anyone take your quiz. This is going to help you figure out the value your quiz offers, the offer that you're selling, if any, or products, and who your target audience might be. We covered knowing your audience and knowing your brand voice by knowing your audience's brand voice and figuring that out using reviews, who might be in your niche, Facebook groups, workshops, listening to what your questions are, if any, and also interviewing people if possible, if you have some people in mind. The next thing we talked about is knowing your offer. So making sure that you do know what you're going to provide for your clients or customers before jumping into making your quiz, whether that be products or services, and understanding what they're struggling with and what that pain point is. And also knowing how you serve your customers. So is it a one-on-one consultation? Are you just giving them ideas on what products are right for them? Is it a DIY thing? Are you doing a done for you thing? What's going on there? And the last thing is knowing what kind of quiz you want to make. So is it a personality style quiz? Are you just trying to figure out, where they fit in? Are you measuring something with a scored style quiz, or is it an assessment style quiz where you're trying to figure out their knowledge on something? So from here, once you have all that ready to go, then you are ready to start your quiz. And at this point, I am going to take a look back in the comments and see any questions. Of course, if anything comes up later, I will be checking in throughout the day to answer any of those. Another thing that I want to let you guys know that from this point, once you have this part figured out, I do recommend actually signing up for our free account. This lets you create as many quizzes as you want. The only features it doesn't have are our paid features, which are lead capture, so that opt-in form and connecting your email marketing platform. It doesn't have branching logic and conversion tracking. But what I like about the free option is it allows you the opportunity to figure out if you like the software, get a feel for it, understand how it works, and build your quiz until you're ready to start actually collecting leads. So you can actually go in there and do that. Awesome. Any questions that you guys have on what I talked about today or even yesterday, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to take a look at what we have. Cool. Lisa, yes, I will let you know when I have an idea for that, and I'll come back in the comments. Excuse me, I'm talking too much. Hi, Linda. Okay, so I'm reading your comment right now. My topic is related to finding purpose. My target is empty nesters who are struggling now that the kids have left home. They don't know what to do or who they are anymore. My goal is to get them into a breakthrough session. What is the best quiz type? It really depends. When you say finding purpose, that can mean a lot of things, and I'd love to know a little bit more about what that is. Is it finding purpose through activities? Is it finding purpose through a hobby? Maybe a show they should watch? Is it gardening? Things like that. Like, or is it travel? How are you helping them find that purpose, and what is that purpose per se? I love that you have a very niche target of parents who are struggling because their kids have left home. I remember when that happened to my parents. I was the last one, so they were bored all the time. They would have loved this. And also, they don't know who they are anymore. So getting them through a breakthrough session, what does that mean also? So I'd love to know a little bit more of what that breakthrough session is. What are they struggling with, and what is the solution that you can give to them that they would benefit from going through a breakthrough session? Do they need a breakthrough session, or do they just need a list of recommendations? Do they need an actual package of maybe fun stuff that you have for them? Is it products? Where does that go? I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Sean, how do I determine if it's best to pay for a quiz building consultant or tackling this myself? It's totally up to you. Personally, I like to try to figure things out before I go in. And that's also why we like to offer as many free resources as we can in terms of like this particular training that's happening for the next 14 days. But also at the same time, if you're already at the point where you're like, I just got to do it, then I definitely recommend doing research all of them are on there with their bios, and they all kind of offer different things. So you can totally go in there, and they're all very responsive. So if you're just kind of shopping around, letting them know like, hey, I'm interested in looking at a consultant, would love to know if this is a right fit. They're all really great at that. So I'm not worried if you try to reach out and see if it's a good fit for you. But if you are the type of person like me where you try to do it yourself, I recommend sticking through the next 14 days, looking at our blog, our help center, and reading some stuff through there. We also have a ton of workshops that we already launched throughout this last, it was like the last 6 months, maybe 7 or 8. I think we started in April. But check those out and just see how you feel about it if you think you can figure it out. I'm also always up for testing, so I always recommend people to test as much as possible. And you can also always put your quiz for feedback in the group here, and we can all take a look. Hi, Kelly. So your quiz is directed at women who need to have a hard talk with their husband about a tough topic or touch topic? I've created the quiz, but need a little guidance on the results section. Is there a specific resource about designing the results? Yes, so I recommend checking out our previous courses. There's not one specifically on just the results, but I have had people touch on it in the workshops. I will try to find after this, maybe we have a good blog post on it that you can take a look at. But pretty much with your results, everybody does it a little bit differently, and it really just kind of depends on what your preference is. I would let me try to find some stuff for you. But pretty much what you want your result to be is you want it to give value. You want it to tell them this is your type, or this is, the package that's right for you, or this is how I can help you. You want to introduce yourself, and you want to let them know a little bit about what that personality means and what it is. And you want to make sure that you have a clear call to action. We are going to go through that at some point in these next 14 days. Let me see what day that's on so you can actually keep an eye out for it. Give me a second. Nope, that's not it. I believe it's on day 6 on December 8th. That's when we're hopping into results. So stay tuned for that. Linda, the workshops are in our help center under the courses folder. So if you go into help.tryinteract.com and you go click on courses, they will all be in there. All right, guys, I have about 5 minutes left, so any last minute questions, I'd love to answer it. Otherwise, I do have another call coming up after this. So anything that does pop in after I hop off, I will, of course, go in and answer it through the comments. Tomorrow, what we're going to be talking about is diving into the actual quiz. So before we go into building it, like I said, we're going to plan out all the stuff. So we're actually going to figure out what the personalities are going to be tomorrow and how to do that before we start figuring out the rest of the title, tagline, questions, and results and everything. Cool. Kelly, last minute question. So do you design the quiz with ascending or descending scoring so the results fall into A, B, C, or D categories? Ours, I believe, are ascending. So result 1 would probably be something like 0 to 10, for example. Result 2 would be 10 to 20, but you can edit those. So I would, let me see if I have some articles that I can send you on what that looks like so you can take a look. I don't touch on scoring specifically through this training, but I will try to find some stuff for you in there. It is ascending though, and you can fix those scores depending on what you want it to be. So if you want result 1 to be just people who go from 0 to 5 rather than 0 to 10, you can set it for that. And then result 2 can be like 5 to 20 and so on. Thanks, Jessie. Everyone shout out to Jessie, who's in the comments right now. She actually runs the Facebook group. I know I talk in here a lot, but she is the brains behind the operation. She also does all our social media, so make sure you say hi. Perfect. So I will get to your guys' questions in the comments. Thanks again for hopping in with me today. I hope you guys learned a lot. I'm curious to see what your guys' quizzes look like after this, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.